Availability of ice class vessels in the international market is extremely low. We maybe one or two we get, and that too getting has been become very challenging. And it is the strategic independence independence in this particular aspect is very important if you want to have a sustainable program in Antarctic and Arctic. As far as Antarctica is concerned, the entire Antarctica is only for science and peaceful purposes, which means actually no mineral exploration or the exploitation or the when using for military purpose is completely banned.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the next episode of Davalum Dialogues. Today, I'm delighted to have as my guest Dr. Thamban Meloth, the director of the National Center for Polar and Ocean Research. He has been here for several years and has a lot to tell us about our entire Arctic and Antarctic program, but today we will be focusing on the Antarctic. So let me start by asking you, Dr. Meloth, is that can you tell us a little about yourself? What prompted you to get into this line, and maybe your background, etc., your education, primarily from a viewpoint of getting the youth interested in this place, and so that they will also use you as an icon to follow you in your career path.
Yeah, good morning, and thank you for being having me here, Rear Admiral Karna. So all the way, coming to take this interaction. First of all, thank you so much for having me and having this at the National Center for Polar and Ocean Research, which is just a 25-year-old institution, which has not a long legacy, but have a vibrant, activities going on for this few decades. So I myself came to Goa way back in 1993 as a PhD student to carry out my research at the National Institute of Oceanography. And the fate is that I continued to be in Goa for this more than 3 decades now, which not only enabled me to complete my PhD. I started as an oceanographer, been sailing a lot, collecting samples and data for quite a long time. So that's something common between us. And it was in 2002 when I just I got this opportunity to serve this institution, which was just a fledgling institution at that time, because the NCPOR itself came back only in 2000, and now we just celebrated our 25 years. So I was happened to be one of the first scientist employee of this institution. So that gave me a lot of opportunities to learn the whole process as well as the grow with the institution. And as currently you can see actually that India has been very active in both Antarctic and Arctic. So that I would say actually that was a big opportunity for me.
So coming to the NCPOR itself, I know that there's a lot happening over here, and you're looking after two massive programs, the Arctic and Antarctic, plus you have a station in the Himalayas as well. Can you tell us the broad contours of what is your charter and what fundamentally do you look after?
Yeah, so if you look at the NCPOR mandate itself, actually, so we basically have not only a research institution, but also provide a lot of strategic inputs, as well as actually provides the operational aspect of the entire polar activities of NCPOR. So we therefore have 2 stations in Antarctica called Maitri and Bharati, separated by nearly about 2,500 kilometers by air, and by sea it is more than 3,000 kilometers. So you can imagine the kind of the logistic challenges involved there. Since 2008, we also have a station in Arctic called Himadri. It is in Svalbard, in the nearly 79-degree north. And since 2015, we also set up a station in the high Himalayas called Himansh, which is in the Lahore-Spiti region of Himachal Pradesh. And then we have activities going around Antarctic Ocean, that is called the Southern Ocean, as well as the Arctic Ocean, which we expanded to multiple areas like in Arctic itself, like Canadian Arctic, Greenland, as well as in the up in the high Arctic. And if you ask me, that's not only just that's only one component of this institution. We are also quite active in the deep ocean, which especially mandated by the government to undertake this deep ocean mission and exploration for the especially the marine minerals like hydrothermal minerals and so on. So it's our the bouquet of activities are quite enormous. So therefore the budget as well as the people involved in that.
So you've spoken a lot about the broad contours of the program already, and I thought we'll focus more on the Antarctic. Could you tell us a little bit about the genesis of this entire program? I know that we started in 1981, and it's been more than 40 years since we've been doing this. In the process, we've set up, I think, 3 stations, if I'm not mistaken. But can you describe to us the entire contours of this entire process and where we are and where we are going to go moving ahead?
Yeah, we completed now the 45 years in Antarctica. We back in 1981 actually when we first expedition started from the shores of Goa, and since then we set up the first station called Dakshin Gangotri in way back in 1983, which enabled us to have to be a part of the Antarctic Treaty System as well as getting a consultative status too. So that was very extremely important at that time for building quickly one station. Although station did not last for a long time because actually it was basically meant to have an immediate foothold. And since '89, we have set up this new larger station in the interior of Antarctica, which is not on the ice because the Dakshin happened to be on an ice shelf. Therefore, it got buried quickly by snow as well as the ice movements. And the Maitri station happened to be on a land which is exposed. We call it an ice-free area, with only very few percentage of actually Antarctic land is exposed that way, which provides an important area for setting up the stations. And Maitri provides the basic strategic importance to the Antarctica for India, because it happened to be an airport next to the Maitri station, which from the Cape Town, which enables that. And the Maitri station have facilities for winter as well as the summer time. Winter about 25 people, and in summer it can go up to swell the entire station about 400 people. And since 2012, we expanded as we wanted to have increased our foothold within Antarctica as well as carry out more scientific research. So we expanded further east, about 2,500 kilometers east of Maitri, called a place called Last Man Hills. And the station is called Bharati, and which is one of the most modern stations in Antarctica, which with all the facilities for energy efficiency, etc. And these 2 stations provide actually the required ambit for the basically to undertake various research activities in Antarctica. However, actually, the government also felt the need to have understanding the Arctic region. So since 2007, we are in Svalbard, which is actually almost in the high north, and since 2008 we set up a station called Himadri, which is again within the Svalbard in a place called New Alicent. And then that enabled us to carry out not only a lot of research activities within the Arctic region, but also then enabled us to further expand into the oceanic region, like in the high Arctic regions, including further going into Canadian Arctic, closer to Greenland, so East Greenland Sea expeditions and the Arctic Sea expeditions and so on. And since 2015, we also established a station to understand the cryosphere, especially where the water is found in frozen form, like glaciers, ice sheets, and the sea ice, etc. We also decided to have a station up in high Himalayas in Lahore Spiti region of Himachal Pradesh. The station is called Himansh. It provides the basic logistic support for people carrying out glaciological research in that region. And on top of that, actually, we also have a lot of activities, platforms like oceanic platforms doing research in Southern Ocean as well as in the rest of the world. So that's about our basic activities.
Right. So when it comes to the Antarctic, actually 2 things that you mentioned, which I'm sure would be of interest to our viewers also. Firstly, from my understanding, of course, there's a tremendous amount of scientific work which is going on over there. But the equal challenge is logistics. How do you handle the logistics of maintaining these stations? You have a summer team, which is large. You have a small wintering team, sustaining them through all these periods. Can you tell us, the complexities of the logistics and what are the solutions that you found for that?
Yeah, thank you for, I think you understand it rightly, because the logistics decide the scientific activities in Antarctica. And as you know, that actually it's a remote continent, all the way supported from a place like India, which is thousands of kilometers far away, and which suggests the kind of a complexity involved there. Like for example, starting from from any small item which you require in Antarctica need to be transported from the mainland. A station to be maintained during the dark polar winters, is also equally very challenging. and ensuring that it is nearly more 100 people are able to are transported, as well as with all the other activities, and the all cargo, fuel, whatever you want, actually everything has to go from the mainland. So therefore we have an Antarctic logistics division here, actually the Antarctic operations division, which actually throughout the year they're very active, and they ensure, actually they work with various bodies, including our foreign missions and various other things, to ensure that actually that we have a continued support system there. Like we have a vessel which is chartered exclusively to transport the fuel and the cargo and even sometimes people. That now we do it from the Cape Town. Originally we used to go from all the way from Goa. In fact, we did that actually even during the COVID period, same thing. So now currently, we send all the cargo from from Goa to Cape Town by ship. I mean, for this year, for example, we also send this cargo directly by a flight, Illusion 76 flight all the way to Cape Town and then to Antarctica, to avoid the complexities in sending cargos. So it's quite an enormous challenge by itself, actually, to ensure that actually, two of the stations, you can call them actually, this is its proximal areas are like a mini townships. You have to ensure from generation of power supplies to waste management, to manage the people, to manage all those things, actually ensure 24 hours, 7 days a week, 365 days is a kind of enormous challenge. Originally, the Indian defense forces used to be the one which actually used to support this particular system, the logistics system, actually. And since 2006, after army has fully withdrawn from the this logistics support system, NCPOR exclusively take care of this particular activity, which by hiring people on a contractual basis, as well as ensuring actually some of them are could be an ex service people, and there's a continuous inflow of young people to ensure that there is a longevity to that particular process. And we also collaborate with a lot of other countries as well as institutions to ensure that actually we have the things required on time, because time is essence in Antarctic program, because we only got about 3 to 4 months of this time window during the the austral summer, which is actually starts somewhere in the November, December, January, February. So beyond which actually we don't have an opportunity to carry out activities. So it's all packed into focused in that particular direction. So every energy and every activity is focused that way.
So you mentioned that largely so far you've been chartering a vessel, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, it's either a Russian vessel or something like that. Or
Yeah, we have been
Ukrainian.
looking for a international
Yeah.
chartering, actually, but we've been getting a Russian vessel mostly. Yes,
Okay.
true.
But now I know that I've been reading in the papers that we're in the market for having our own vessel. I'm also aware of the fact that we've tried several times in the past, but have not sort of been able to cross the final hurdle in building or acquiring one of these vessels. Can you tell us a little bit about the indigenous icebreaker? I presume this is going to be an ice class vessel that you're going to get. As to where we are with this, and what is the timeline within which we should have our own vessel?
Yeah, thank you for asking that, because we have been this has been a very long process, actually, since we started Antarctic program. Is this thought process of having a vessel, which is extremely important, because which is even proven during the recent COVID period, as well as the the geopolitical tensions, actually. Availability of ice class vessels in the international market is extremely low. We maybe one or two we get, and that too getting has been become very challenging. And it is the strategic independence, independence in this particular aspect is very important if you want to have a sustainable program in Antarctic and Arctic. So although we started way back, actually now I can confidently say that actually we have a kind of an in principle approval to go ahead, and which will cost us about more than 2,000 crores of rupees, and it is expected to be built in an Indian shipyard, potentially in collaboration with or not. We do not know at this stage, but basically we are at the stage of to going ahead with a complete proposal to the government, actually, and finally we will be design and other things will be getting ready. And the peculiarity of this particular vessel, actually, like that, we want to have this vessel to be multi-purpose. So at least a dual purpose. It should serve both our scientific activities as well as our the operational activities to Antarctica. Means therefore it should be a supply vessel which will be able to take all the containers and fuel and all those things to Antarctica, but also it should be able to take our scientists as well as scientific equipment. So it will be a research vessel come a supply vessel. So we like to call them a polar research vessel, and it should be coming in another 5 years time. And this time we are quite confident that it will happen, because government is very much in supportive of this particular idea. Because especially if you want to carry out any research in the Arctic region without having a vessel, polar research vessel, we will never be able to make a dent, because the Arctic is more of an ocean. Antarctica, you can manage with sometimes chartering vessel to supplying actually, but even then that becomes very depending on some people, few available things. And so therefore, this particular vessel, which will be a PC5, Polar Class 5, will have an ability to actually at least to be there to cut an ice which is about 1 meter or slightly above that, and it should be able to sustain actually to close to Antarctica, even in a case situation where actually ice is icebergs are floating around and so on. So this vessel will also have actually will about more than 130-meter length, as well as ability to carry about 45 scientists, 40 crew, and so almost about more than 85 people it can be, and with all the scientific instruments, as well as potential to take all these supply items to Antarctica.
And so potentially it will be used in the Arctic as well.
Absolutely. So that is one main reason actually why we should have a polar vessel actually. So it's it should be able to take them in the Arctic.
Now, you mentioned regarding the Antarctic Treaty System. So let's come down to the geopolitics of the Antarctic. So there's the, and I think one of the vehicles of that is the ATCM, or the Antarctic Treaty Consultative Mechanism. Can you tell us, viewers, regarding the governance system that prevails in the Antarctic right now, and how I believe the ATCM at least is going to come under review in 1947? What are the possible geopolitics involved in its continuation? Are there likely to be changes?
Yeah, so Antarctica is the only place which actually does not belong to any country. It's no sovereign nations have rights on Antarctica, and fortunately, it's governed by an Antarctic Treaty System, which was agreed in 1959, came into existence by 1961. Originally, there were about 12 signatories, and then thereafter, currently we have about 58 countries, with, sovereign nations actually, which are party to Antarctic Treaty System. Out of which there are 29 parties which are actually have a consultative status. India happens to be one of this earliest Asian country to have this consultative status after Japan, and that provides us a lot of opportunities in its governance. As far as Antarctica is concerned, the entire Antarctica is only for science and peaceful purposes, which means actually no mineral exploration or the exploitation or the when using for military purposes is completely banned. Although military can support the logistic activities, it cannot be having any other activities. So which also means actually there is a lot of a continent which is a size of about India and United States together, such a huge continent, having only about 40 or countries which is having stations in Antarctica, and which means actually the governance is still a big challenge, because it requires cooperation among these countries. And every decision in Antarctic Treaty is by consensus only, which means reaching consensus in the modern world becomes so extremely difficult. So therefore, actually, it's Antarctic Treaty Consultative becomes it's an annual affair which ensure that actually this process is well thought after, as well as well discussed before any rules or regulations are being put into place.
Even if you want to build a new station, you have to have consensus?
Absolutely. So it is basically, if you want to have a new station in Antarctica, unlike in the past, anybody could build anything. But since Antarctic Treaty System have this Madrid Protocol came into picture in 1998, which ensure that actually every activity in Antarctica, which have a beyond a minor or this on the Antarctic system, need to undergo a comprehensive environmental analysis. So this comprehensive environmental evaluation, what we call CE, it's a process of under Antarctic Treaty Consultative System, and that ensures that actually the people who want to build a new station or activity ensure that actually they don't just do it for the sake of it. They are scientifically supported, as well as environmentally sustainable, and so on. So for example, if India want to build a new station, also it need to be go through all this complete process. So, for example, there are several countries are building so many stations. So every time there is the process of clearance of CE process of Antarctic ATCM it can take several years. It is not just it cannot happen in 1 year or something. So there will be multiple questions being asked. Ultimately, every country has to agree that yes, what a country or a party which is proposing a particular station or activity is actually essential and it will actually benefit Antarctic science itself.
So again, going back to the 1947 issue, if you can tell our viewers that once we come to the rollover of this treaty, is there likely to be some sort of contestation or geopolitical contestation at that time? And is there any possibility of some economic activity also starting in the Antarctic after 1947?
If you
2047?
ask me personally, I feel that the possibilities are very limited because the Antarctic Treaty is kind of a foolproof system. Because even if you want to change that, you still require a kind of consensus, at least more than two-third majority. So that's become extremely difficult actually to in this modern time to have consensus.
But rollover will take over automatically.
Yeah, rollover will take automatically. So in like 2048, actually, we are expecting to have the rollover of this Antarctic Treaty System unless something dramatically changes, which according to me is will be very difficult considering although it's nothing can be said no at this stage, but the Helsinki Declaration which came in 2023, it clearly shows that actually that Antarctic Treaty does not have a sunset date. It just clearly states that which every party has agreed to it, and the mineral exploitation also has is also banned as per the Antarctic Treaty. So the almost all the countries within the Antarctic Treaty System believe that actually that Antarctic Treaty System is going to be a perpetual treaty kind of thing until something dramatically changes.
So, coming to something personal, Thamban, I mean, I know that you are one of the few Indians who's been to the South Pole. And can you tell our viewers about that journey? It must have been quite, what were the distances involved? How many days did it take? How did you handle the logistics? What were the challenges you faced in this journey to the South Pole?
Yeah, thank you. In fact, I would say I was very fortunate actually. So when 2010 we decided, the government decided actually it is important actually as we getting close to the 100 years of first exploration of South Pole actually that India should have put its foot on the South Pole. We have this eight-member team selected. Actually, I was one of the youngest fellow at that time in that group, and I would say actually I was not only fortunate, actually it gave me a lot of insights and the opportunities for me to further to carry out my research, because the journey itself, which is one way, it takes about 2,300 kilometer distance. Actually, it's a very long traverse, which is going through the mountains, crossing more than 3,000-meter altitude, and also there has been a when we start from Maitri station, which is the coastal station, to the South Pole, which is 90 degrees south, and we go through varied of geography as well as various of climatic zones actually, with temperature reaching minus 55 degree and minus 60 degree at times. And one of the biggest challenge actually has been whenever we plan such thing actually that we would like to reach faster wherever the destinations are. In the process actually that we have to limit our activity, especially camping activities, limited. So which will also mean actually unless until you camp, you don't have a prepare your food or other activities. So South Pole expedition is one thing which actually proved to me actually that there are only few things in the life most matters most. One is water, food, and a shelter on your head, and the clothing. If this much is there, actually, I think you should be able to sustain anywhere and everywhere, I felt actually. And that is the only thing which is really important, I felt. And that opened up me to a lot of things which I felt thereafter. To me, most of my research, the field, campaigns which I undertook, actually, I had enrichment from that particular expedition helped me to establish new camps and areas, unknown places, actually. What are the things which you need to be taken care, because we made everyone when in a first expedition do make mistakes actually, so therefore we always think okay, we could have done better, so we learn from each of this. So South Pole expedition really opened up our eyes to the real challenges actually when you move out of your comfort zones.
And how many days? And
It took us more than a month.
Okay.
It took us more than a month just to traversing, and preparation altogether. It's about 2 months time for us.
So every night you would set up camp somewhere,
Yeah.
etc., and you set up tents. You were
The
staying in
small
tents.
tents we set up actually, but these tents actually, with a kind of a sleeping bags which we had actually. With basically, it was like you are sleeping over a minus 50 degree, ice blocks. They are
Right.
they are so hard ice, and they can be really, your spine would be really, frozen like. So a lot of people actually hardly slept those days. So, and in the process, one good thing happened. Every one of us lost at least 7 to 10 kilos of weight, in the process. So, which is I would say, good thing.
So I think we've covered a lot of ground today. It just remains for me to thank you for this fascinating journey. And any closing thoughts you have for our viewers you'd like to
Yeah,
mention?
so I just want to also mention actually that, as I was telling actually, that the station building is going on. One more thing I just wanted to also inform the audience actually, that India is building a new station also now, in place of Maitri. That will be one of the, again, the most modern station which will come in the years, which will have a renewable energy with the wind energy, as well as the solar energy being utilized. It will have all this power management system, which will ensure that actually we are efficient in sustainable in that particular area, and which will also have about a place for more than 140 people actually. So it will be a very futuristic station, which will last at least about 30 to 40 years. So with that support, I would say actually, and the kind of support which we get from the in the government, I'm very confident actually that as Antarctica is facing a challenge. In fact, if you ask me, in 1970s and 80s, why people went to Antarctica was basically for the strategic purpose. Currently, the Antarctica has changed so much, and this impact is being faced all over the world. And what happens in Antarctica does not stay there; it reaches to our shores in terms of increasing sea level, changing weather patterns like monsoons, getting extreme rainfalls, and so on. So Antarctica and Arctic is going to be very important for our day-to-day life. So therefore, studying Antarctica and Arctic will make a difference to how our economy, as well as how we are prepared for the future hazards and the climate changes. So with that, actually, I would say that actually the Antarctic and Arctic is going to be on our life forever.
And just for the sake of our viewers, because you mentioned this, I'm sorry I forgot about the climate change issue. Can you, just in the thickness of the ice cap in the Antarctic and the altitudes, I mean to say, how high does the Antarctic go? On top of that, you have an ice column. So what sort of altitudes are you talking about over there?
Yeah, so when you talk about Antarctica is actually, it's not only the iciest place on Earth, it is not only the driest place on Earth, it's also the highest elevated land on the Earth, because of the fact that Antarctica is just like a land like ours, covered by an ice as thick as 4 kilometer thick in some places, and on an average about 2.5 kilometer thickness of ice on top of that land. And this ice, if melt entirely, the sea level can increase by about more than 60 meters. And that is the magnitude and importance of Antarctica has for our future life itself. And this ice is also actually being a freshwater ice. Actually, it will directly impact the increase in sea level. Unlike Arctic, which is a sea ice, which is basically within already floating on the sea water, will not make a difference into so much into the sea level. So Antarctica will make a huge difference to our life, therefore.
So, and on your journey to the South Pole, what was the highest elevation you reached?
We reached 3,500 meter.
That is including the ice column. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, so normally coastal Antarctica actually is very comfortable place. I would say about temperature varies from minus 20 to minus about 0 degree. Summertime can be even plus 1 degree or 2 degrees sometimes in rare cases. And therefore, I would say it's a relatively very comfortable place, the coastal Antarctica. But as you cross this, the transantarctic mountains and going to the South Pole, it's all over the ice, and its weather can be very dramatically changing, and because of the elevation change, the oxygen also can be limited at some places. So therefore, the landscape and the atmosphere and the temperature, everything is different when you compare to coastal Antarctica. So Antarctica being such a huge continent, every place is not same.
Yeah. Yes, I think sometimes we tend to forget it. The dimensions of the
Dimension,
Antarctic. Yeah.
exactly.
It is a continent. I mean, probably around the same size as Australia or probably larger?
It is larger than that actually. It is 4.5 times of India.
Okay.
It is you can say US,
Yeah.
United States of America, and India put together.
Yeah,
Such a huge continent it is.
So it remains for me to thank you once again for taking this time out and telling our viewers about this fascinating journey of ours and exploring the poles, the deep oceans, and the enormous work being done by NCPOR. Thank you so much, Thamban. Really delighted to have this conversation and hope to have many such conversations with you in the future.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you.